What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another stream. We'll do another match reaction here. This week, we've got some Champions League football in our hands, all right? Real Madrid, another team that I love. Champions League, obviously, the biggest competition in all of Europe. So, yeah, we're back with that. Hopefully, United can be in it next year so that we have more content to run because I want to watch both Real Madrid and Manchester United. So, yeah, great stuff going into this game. I'm just gonna jump right into it. Structure is the same. We'll talk about the first half, my points from that second half, what I thought about some of the adjustments, and then we'll cover the overall game. Heading into the game, some news going into it. I think with Mbappe not playing, that was one thing, and I was curious how that was gonna also how both teams will respond coming after the first leg with all the craziness that happened within that game on the field, off the field, obviously with the comments toward Vinny from the Benfica player and kind of like UEFA dealing with that and all that stuff. So a lot of intensity just around that going into the game, and obviously Real Madrid now being at the Bernabeu, going back home and being in front of their fans. So I was always curious to see how that was going to play out. But and also obviously Mourinho getting the booking in the first leg and being sent off with the red, so he's not on the touchline, and how does that impact how Benfica plays, right? I'm sure he was able to coach and do all that stuff, but still, it has its effects when it comes to that. And yeah, the lineup for Real Madrid was unsurprising given like the injuries that they have, and obviously Kylian Mbappe not being in, so Garcia comes in at the nine, and Vinny and Gula coming off the wing with Rodrigo being injured. There were no real surprises for me as far as the starting lineup. Understanding the situation and the injuries and everything that the team's trying to navigate. But yeah, my players to watch were Gonzalo Garcia. I really wanted to see how he would play. I think he's been a really bright spot for Real Madrid throughout the season, throughout the year. The times that he's gotten chances to be able to make something, he's made something happen, right? Granted, it hasn't been always the best situations in terms of, you're playing behind Kylian Mbappe, so like your chances can be subdued a little bit naturally because that's the situation you're in. But he's a young guy, right? He's a young guy, and I think he's making the most of his opportunities when he comes on. And granted, this game, nothing really screamed to me that as far as like the type of impact he was able to have on that game. I think it's just one of those where it's just sometimes you're able to have more impact on the game than others, right? But Trent and Vinny Jr., two other guys that I have my eye on, and I wanted to see how they play because of course, because of their quality. And those guys, they're game wreckers, right? They're game changers. So you always want to pay attention to them and see how they're going to affect the game and what they're going to do and how all that affects the game. So, yeah, jumping in the first half, I think the Mbappe thing was really interesting. It was, I don't know if it was during an interview or something like that where he basically said he wanted to get ready for round of 16, so he didn't want to take chances that like keep hurting the knee because it seems like he's dealing with some knee soreness, and so for him it was a decision. Okay, I want to save it for later games, and it makes sense physically. You want to be at your best whenever you can be, but it was so funny to hear that because it just screams the amount of confidence that the guy had in his team, to be fair, right? He was very confident in his team. He felt like, no, they're going to make it through, and we're going to see this through, and we're going to make it to the round of 16. So, and the boys did deliver. So, it kind of worked out in that regard. But obviously, with him being out, it's kind of like, man, Mbappe's been lights out this season for Madrid. Obviously, again, last season, I thought they were definitely going to need him to be able to see this one through. I thought his presence up there along with Vinny, that was going to be a difference maker. Before the game started was, hey, if you got those two guys up there, Benfica has to think twice about anything that they want to do because there's such a threat. It's such a threat for them to have to deal with. And honestly, Vinny and Mbappe are, arguably, maybe not even arguably, they're probably the best dual threat in world football right now, right? I think they just put fear into every defensive manager that they go against. You got both those guys up there with their pace, their creativity, their finishing being world class. They're just a lot to handle, right? So I think they're always going to have an impact when they're on the field. And even when one of them's on the bench, right? Like meaning on the bench to play, that they can still play. You just, as a team, you're just thinking twice. But yeah, no, they made the decision there. Arbeloa said in his press conference that the decision to not have him play was done with the medical staff, because I guess it was a little bit of a back and forth of whether or not he was actually going to play. But yeah, with the medical staff, they decided, hey, we want to make sure that he's 100% and have no discomfort whatsoever when he's playing. And yeah, I mean, of course, you want those guys to be at their best. He's one of the best in the world. So, I'm sure for him, he wants to protect his body too. So, yeah. And other notable injuries too for Real Madrid going into that: Jude being injured, Rodrigo Militao. I mean, these are fundamental players to Madrid, right? Like these are guys that are stable in that lineup, and so missing them is always going to have an impact. But look, they pulled through, right? They did their thing, but that was not without a lot of struggle, right? And I that's that's my next point. I thought Madrid's shape throughout the game was, man, at times, I mean, it was very questionable. I'll just put it that way. It was very questionable, and you almost it's an interesting thing, right? Talking about shape and formation, because at the end of the day, there are different ways to win the game, right? There are many different ways to win the game. Now, I think over time we've seen that having a superior shape, or being in positioning yourself and your team in a certain way, can give you an advantage, right? Because sometimes it just becomes a numbers game, right? If it's a 4v3 all the time, 5v4, or 2v1, right? The chances, you have a higher chance of being able to take advantage of the defense because you have that numerical advantage. But Madrid's positioning throughout the game on both sides of the ball was, it was questionable. I mean, it seemed like at times it seemed like everybody was kind of doing their own thing, right? There was like no clear shape, no clear approach offensively or defensively. And on one hand, I think it makes a case for, that the case of, hey, there are multiple ways to win this game. But on the other hand, it's like, well, how sustainable is this, right? Like, how sustainable of an approach is this for you as a team, especially when you're Real Madrid? You're playing in the best competitions against the best teams. I mean, specifically speaking for the Champions League, right? You're playing against the best across Europe. And so you want to be at your best and you want to give yourself the best chance to win. Yeah, I think there's a lot of question about the approach and how they line up and ultimately how they try to go after the win. And sometimes I wonder what the tactical strategy is, because it's not very clear what it is, right? And again, that's not necessarily a knock to Madrid, because there are different styles, okay? There are very different styles and there are different ways to win the game. And but at that time, a lot of people they noted the difference between his opening presser and his response to that versus Xavi Alonso's response when asked a very similar question about his approach and his intended approach, right? And Alonso, I mean, quote, he said, "I'm already thinking about how to be a balanced team that exerts control over the game while capitalizing on the team's individual qualities. That will help bring stability that allows the individual brilliance to flourish." Right? I mean, like, he gets asked a question, and he's like, boom, 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 boom. That is how Xavi Alonso thinks, right? That is his approach to the game. That's how he manages. That's what he knows best, and that's what he does best, and that's what he believes in. And so you want to see that, right? And then again, 7.5 months later, right, when Arbeloa gets the job to be the caretaker manager, asked the same thing, and basically his response was, "Hey, this club is about winning, winning, and winning again." Right, like that. And for him, it was, you can see the different approach. Maybe I would be tempted to say, like, maybe that's more of a relaxed approach to the game. But again, people talk about the difference between being a coach and a manager, and that Real Madrid needs a manager rather than a coach. And then, those two guys are definitely different. And Arbeloa definitely comes across more like a Carlo Ancelotti, right? Like, that kind of approach. And, guy obviously who had so much success, of course, at Real Madrid, but even at AC Milan, he had amazing success there. And he, those guys have their different approaches, and if it works, it works. I think if you're winning, everything else is taken care of, because the game, at the end of the day, it's about winning the game. So, however you do it, if you can manage to win the game, that's all that really matters. That's really what people think and care about. So, I think as long as he's winning, it won't matter if he doesn't have a strategic approach to the game. It won't matter if he doesn't even think twice about what he does for any particular game. He's winning. That's all that matters. Like at the end of the day, that's how he's going to be measured. It's whether or not he's winning, because that's what the game is about. It's about winning or losing the game. And I think one of the things that happened with Real Madrid is that they were left wide open a lot of times, right? The defense was left wide open. So it gave a lot of easy opportunities for Benfica early on, and they capitalized on one of them. At that time when I saw that goal, I thought this is going to be very interesting because at that point, not that I necessarily thought Benfica was going to score more goals, right? I didn't feel that they were going to dominate the game, but it made me it made me start to wonder what things were going to look like from that point on. Because Real Madrid kind of came out flat. They kind of, not even flat, almost like they came out with no clear idea of what they were gonna do, right? It was kind of like a guessing game of like, okay, what are we gonna do? How are we gonna approach this game? And so all the guys were all over the place, and then they concede the goal. It's like, okay, boom, what are you gonna do now? How does Real Madrid respond? I think that was the big thing. How are they gonna respond to going down so early? I think they went down in the first 15 minutes, right? That's when Benfica scores their goal. So it's like, how do you respond at that time? And it's almost like that woke them up, right? Because 2 minutes later, they go on and get the goal, and they absolutely needed that. I was looking at the game, I'm like, man, my head is spinning because I see Carreras going up to the midfield. I see Camavinga sliding from midfield going to left back. I see Vinny up there on an island all by himself. So I'm wondering like, what is going on right now? So yeah, very difficult to see it, the game playing and game plan. And yeah, sometimes I watch that and I think like maybe the pregame talk was just, hey, just go out there and be threatening and have fun, right? Like, because sometimes it just comes across that way that there's no clear direction. So the players are trying to figure out what to do in real time. And Kamavinga, for me, early on, I felt like, man, like this dude's like all over the field, and not in a good way. Like it just felt like he was just running around like, his head spinning in all different directions. And I think part of that had to do with the lack of direction and lack of like true understanding of like their identity and their a clear approach to that game. But I mean, they ended up winning. So it almost like everything gets scratched out because it's like, hey, we won the game. Because if they do this in every single game that they play, but then they end up winning, it's like, what are you gonna say? Like they're winning. It doesn't really matter, right? Because then it's like then the conversation becomes like, hey, maybe Arbeloa is like one of the greatest geniuses that we've ever seen, right? Because he's winning so much. Winning cures all. Winning cures a lot of things, and it cures everything. At the end of the day, that's what the game's about. Yes, I know it's an entertainment business. I know it's you want to play a beautiful game and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, beautiful or not, if you're winning, you're winning. And you get paid for winning and being there on the biggest stages, right? And I guess, sometimes winning is complemented with a beautiful style of playing all the time, offensively and defensively. But I don't think that's always the case necessarily. And so, yeah, so we'll see how Real Madrid continues on. But Chouamini, I mean, I saw that he won play of the game, play of the match. I think he had some really great moments. I think his goal turned things around completely for Real Madrid. To be honest with you, I think the momentum shifted quite a bit after that goal. Madrid seemed to be more settled down and more in control of the game. It was almost like they concede, light switch happens. They're like, no, like we're Real Madrid, like we're about to win this game, and this is our game to win. So, but the goal comes out of nowhere, right? It's a much needed goal, comes out of nowhere. He slides in from the midfield and beautiful finish, right? Very composed, and that dude, he can strike the ball. Like I've seen some really nice goals from Tchouaméni ever since he joined Real Madrid. That boy he could strike that ball, and he strikes it well. He's got a powerful shot. But yeah, really, really nice goal. Really, really nice goal and composed goal. But coming out the half, honestly, I thought Courtois was I thought he was like the most stable player, and And I think he was like the player for me in the first half. And I do this because I think sometimes, you got to have players of the first half and second half because sometimes things change. But out of the first half, he played amazing. I mean, I thought he kept Madrid in it. And I think he kept Madrid from conceding more goals. I mean, there were just some chances that Benfica had. I mean, half chances where it was just like beautiful shots. I mean, there was one long shot where Courtois sees the ball like he sees the ball when it's like about 10 yards out from him because it goes through a defender's leg. And it's like you see that and you're like, that's a great save. Like the reaction and the anticipation of that to be in the right position and to react and stop that ball. I mean, he's I mean, he's like probably one of the best goalkeepers in the world right now. I mean, yeah. I mean, he's not probably one of the best. He's probably the best, right? But yeah, no, his consistency is unmatched, and I thought he did amazingly well for them. But going into halftime for both teams, I thought the adjustments for Real Madrid, I thought they needed to keep, just keep trying to penetrate and kick out, right? I felt like they could, like especially with Vinny on that wing, like they can he can cause damage and he does so often where he gets those one-on-ones and he is taking that defender on eight, and that is his job, right? His job is to create kind of those threatening opportunities for the team and he does it so well. So I thought feed Vinny, penetrate, and have him kick out, pass it back or pass it over the middle and somebody can run onto it. And then for Benfica, I thought truly if they stayed calm and picked their passes, I thought they could have been more threatening to Real Madrid because the defense was very open. I thought the defense was very open. And if they had, figured out how to stay calm, find the open passes, because they were there, like they were there all game long, I think they could have posed a greater threat to Real Madrid. But yeah, but they got overhauled in the second half. And that's what I thought coming in the second half. I thought, man, Madrid's composure just shifted. Because now starting the second half they were way more composed at the start of the second half than they were at the start of the game. And it's something that's interesting about this Madrid side, right? They seem to get better and better as the game goes on. And Arbeloa was actually asked about this in this post-game press conference, and he said as much, right? He sort of joked about it and didn't make much of it, but I wonder if that's one of those unintended consequences of choosing to play that way, right? So instead of okay, being on the front foot and from the jump and really dominating the game, similar to what Xavi Alonso was hoping to do with this side, it's sort of like, hey, you let these guys play more fluid, and maybe eventually what ends up happening, they mature into the game and they figure out the rhythm of the game and they're able to take control from that. And I think that that's something that can potentially happen, and I think there is an inherent danger to that, right? Because I think relying on that approach too much, it can kind of become a crutch. And maybe in certain games, you just don't have enough time to figure it out. Or maybe you're playing a team that's so far tactically superior that it's hard to figure out the rhythm of the game in a fluid manner within the 90 minutes, right? Maybe you need a little bit more time to be able to figure that out, but you only have 90 minutes to do it plus extra time, whatever. This seems that, hey, let the guys play type of thing. And Madrid, let's be real. Like, I mean, look, they've got talent at every single position, right? They've got young talent, like more mature talent, guys that are in their prime, and then they got, some veterans on the back end. So they're talented on every side. So if any team could do this and afford to do that, it would be Real Madrid. I mean, that's kind of like in their DNA. That's kind of, that is kind of how they play the game. So I think it's possible, but there are obviously some risks in that. But yeah, the other guy I thought was so interesting, man, was Raul Asensio. That guy to me is like Ramos incarnate. Right? He's such a funny player. It's like he lives to get yellow cards. But yeah, I was expecting him to have more yellow cards than he actually does. Because I looked into it. He actually doesn't have that many yellow cards in the season in La Liga. But he's not even like in the top 10 for yellow cards in La Liga, which I'm surprised by because he plays so recklessly. And as a fan, I think you just get nervous every time the guy a guy like that on your team gets around the ball because you're like, yo, it could be a really nice tackle or it could be a red card, right? Like it could go either way. That's what it feels like with him. And I think he walks on a very, very thin line, that guy. And yeah, as a fan, he kind of makes you nervous at times. But yeah, he's a young guy, and yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens with him and with that whole defensive back line for Real Madrid. But he gives the Ramos vibes, always looking for that yellow card. So, but lastly, the player that I wanted to focus on is Trent. Right, Trent Alexander Arnold. Yep, that's right. He came alive in the second half, in my opinion. He was seeing more of the ball and presenting, just being more of a threat in the attack for Madrid, and and I want to see that for him. I remember seeing the game where I think it was early in this Champions League where Madrid goes to Liverpool and they're playing against Liverpool in Liverpool, and they ended up losing the game. But Trent is just on. He's on the bench, and I don't think he played that game. But I felt for him like, oh man, like his return to Liverpool and all that stuff. I want to see him do well, but I think he was still like semi hurt, and he might have came on late in that game. I don't remember exactly, but I know it was kind of like a non-factor at the end of it. But nonetheless, I think this new approach and of course, like the increased game time that he's seeing under Arbeloa right now is really going to suit him well. Because right now he has the freedom to drop in the midfield positions and just be way more threatening from there, which that is how Trent made his name in the first place, right? Like it's kind of what we've come to know him as, his ability to be threatening when going forward and pushing the ball forward. He's kind of like Tom Brady back there. He's slinging the ball from, left side of the field. Yeah, I mean to the left side of the field, right side. Like he can ping like like most beautiful passes, and I think he's getting that opportunity right now. He's getting a little bit more of that freedom to do that, and there's just nobody else like him. The next player I can think of is Hakimi. I think Hakimi is like from what I remember, he's kind of like more like a 1-2 type of guy, 1-2 touches and create an offensive advantage for PSG. But Trent, it's like, man, he sees passes and he's gonna try to make them. And most of the time, 8 times out of 10, he's making that pass, and he's pinpoint accurate on those. And so I'm excited to see how things develop for him and how he flourishes in that position. But being the prototype that he is at that position, a unique type of player in that position. So yeah, I think he'll flourish a lot. He kept them in it, and he did his job. Yes, I know that's his job as a goalie to. He's supposed to stop shots, but you got to give credit where credit's due because there's some saves he makes. Say you're like, okay, another goalie's probably not making those saves. It's funny. I have a lot of respect for goalies, but I never want. I guess that's why I have so much respect for them. I never wanted to play goalie, and if I need to, like in a pickup game for fun, whatever. If I need to, I will play. Just to rotate and stuff like that. But yeah, no, I have so much respect for the goal because I think they have so much impact on the game. I think sometimes it can be a little bit understated how much of an impact they have. Just the amount of confidence that it brings to the team when you have a good goalie there. Like some goalies are really an extra player on the field, whereas some of the goalies it's like, okay, it's a goalie, you're really going against 10 men, but he's one of those guys that it's like, no, 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 there's an extra player there, and it makes things that much more difficult for the opposing team. And I think that's what Courtois brings. Again, he's one of the best in the world, if not the best, to do it right now. Courtois right now he's out of his mind. So yeah, those are my thoughts from the game. Great win for Real Madrid. Now they advance, and I think the draw is tomorrow, and they will either face City or Sporting. I think those are the two options, and yeah, it's something like crazy. Madrid versus City happened like in the past, like for like 6 or 7 years straight or something like that, right? So it's kind of been crazy, kind of the little rivalry that they have there, which I would be nervous if I was City. I mean, Real Madrid going against City because right now they're picking momentum. They're picking up some momentum with Pep, at least in the Premier League. Yeah, and the way that Madrid plays so open, I would be nervous if I was them. But Yeah, we'll see what happens. Benfica obviously eliminated, but either Sporting or City. But until next time, that is it for today's stream and the reaction to Real Madrid versus Benfica 2-1 and 3-1 on aggregate, seeing Real Madrid through.